Hi friends, I am Dr. Sharma and I would be giving a talk on urological injuries during gynec surgeries. The emphasis of my talk will be how to deal with these urological injuries, how to recognize them, but most importantly, how to prevent them. Now, if we want to prevent an injury from occurring, we need to be aware of the risk factors which can cause these injuries. It is stupidity rather than courage to refuse to recognize the danger when it is close upon you. When a gynecologist is operating, there are twin dangers which are lurking around. The bladder, which is a forgiving organ, and a ureter, which is the unforgiving organ. Now, there are certain anatomical factors which will increase the risk of injury, and a gynecologist should be aware of them. Now, when the ureter enters into the pelvis, it is covered by a fold of the peritoneum. The ureter is very close to the gonadal vessels, which are also covered by a fold of peritoneum, which is called as the infundibulopelvic ligament or the suspensory ligament of ovary. Now, when these vessels are being ligated here, because of their close proximity to the ureter, the risk of injuring the ureter is very high. Likewise, we all are aware that the ureter crosses the uterine vessels 1.5 to 2 cm away from the margin of the cervix of the ureter. And as you can see that the ureter is below the uterine artery. This is an area where the ureter is likely to be injured. Also, as the ureter enters into the bladder, it is close to the vaginal fornix. In fact, the left ureter is closer to the anterior vaginal fornix as compared to the right. So, the risk of injuring the ureter during a vaginal hysterectomy in this area is high, especially on the left side. Now, what are the certain pathological factors? By this I mean, what are the changes or what are the pathologies which can cause an alteration in the anatomy which can increase the risk of injury to the urological organ. We need to remember the mnemonic ABCDE. Adhesions, because they can distort the anatomy, especially of the ureter. Broad ligament swelling. Congenital anomalies of the ureter and the bladder, which are usually picked up by an ultrasound. Displacement of the ureter, which tends to occur because of these swellings. And endometriosis, which can cause marked alteration in the anatomy of the pelvis. Now, once we know these risk factors, what next to do? We need to have a roadmap on which we can travel. That is, we need to be aware of the road on which we can travel and be aware of the dangers which are lurking ahead. We need to do an intravenous urogram, especially if the swelling is more than 12 weeks in size, the adnexal mass more than 4 cm in size, and most importantly, there is hydronephrosis and hydroureter seen on sonography. Now, we need to remember that in order to pick this up, we need to do an abdominal ultrasound and not just a pelvic ultrasound. If we are suspecting that the life would be difficult during a surgery, we can put in a ureteric catheter or DJ stent before opening up the patient. We need to remember, however, friends, that putting a DJ stent does not decrease the incidence of an injury. It just increases the incidence of recognizing it intraoperatively. What are the intraoperative factors which increase the risk of injury? It's very simple. If the scenario intraop is bad, then the chances of injury are very high. And when I say bad, I mean bleeding, marked adhesions, and distorted anatomy because of any reason. So, what are the intraoperative precautions we need to take during such a scenario? We need to be aware of the anatomy of that area very thoroughly. There should be adequate exposure. There is an old adage, big surgeons take big incisions. It may not be big incision, but the exposure should be definitely adequate. There is no substitute for a good experience. If you are not experienced enough, have a colleague who is experienced enough, and sometimes having two surgeons together during a difficult surgery is very helpful. Avoid blind clamping. Whenever there is bleeding, there is a tendency to clamp blindly to decrease the risk of bleeding, but hold that area under pressure, use suction judiciously, and clamp the vessels under vision. In this way, an inadvertent injury to the ureter is avoided most of the times. Dissect away from the bladder and dissect away from the ureter. And avoid excessive use of cautery near the bladder and ureter, because the dissipation of heat can damage the ureter and bladder and cause ischemic injury. Now, how to recognize these injuries? Despite our best efforts, it can happen that these ureteric injuries and bladder injuries do occur, but we need to recognize them so that we can prevent complications from occurring. Arthur Conan Doyle had said that there is nothing more deceptive than an obvious fact, and the world is full of obvious things which nobody by any chance ever observes, and this is important. We don't observe. We see, but we do not observe, because if we are observant, we would end up analyzing the situation, and then the distinction would be very clear. The most important thing for us to make the difference between seeing and observing is have a high index of suspicion. If we are suspecting a bladder injury, it may be obvious by the rent that we are seeing, or by the presence of blood in the urine bag, or during laparoscopic surgery somebody suddenly notices that the urine bag is full of air, that is the catheter bag sign, which suggests that the bladder has been opened. Once we have a suspicion of a bladder injury, how do we diagnose it? We need to fill the bladder adequately with at least 400 ml of normal saline, and not just 200 or 250 ml of saline. It is distending the bladder adequately, then adding methylene blue at least 1 ampule, and then look for leakage. How do we treat bladder injuries? We remember the 4 Ds. The defect needs to be closed using absorbable suture material like 20 or 30 Vicryl. We need to drain the bladder by using a Foley catheter, which is kept for at least 7 to 10 days. We need to drain the retropubic space so that there is no collection that occurs in that area. And we need to use drugs like bladder relaxants so that unstable contractions of the bladder are prevented, which might otherwise interfere with the healing of the bladder. Now, how to recognize a ureteral injury? During open surgery, the incidence of ureteral injury during a gynecological surgery is about 0.1 to 1.5%, and 33% of them are recognized intraoperatively. While during a laparoscopic surgery, the incidence is much higher, 0.8 to 14%, and very importantly, only less than 1% of them are recognized intraoperatively. Friends, this suggests that during a laparoscopic surgery, having a very high index of suspicion is very important. Otherwise, these injuries to the ureter can be missed. The ureteral injuries traditionally have been classified into 5 grades. Grade 1, which is just contusion or hematoma without any devascularization. Grade 2, where there is less than 50% transaction. Grade 3, where there is more than 50% transaction. Grade 4, that is complete transaction with less than 2 cm devascularization. And grade 5, avulsion or more than 2 cm devascularization of the ureter. And I feel we need to add a 6th grade to it, that is ischemia, which tends to occur due to use of cautery during laparoscopic surgery. Now, how do you diagnose a ureteral injury? Either the injury would be obvious, where you have cut the ureter and you are seeing urine dripping out and you know that the ureter has been injured, or you recognize the ligature of ureter. Or the second scenario, where you are suspecting a ureteric injury. Now, when you suspect a ureteric injuries, there can be still 2 scenarios. A C-arm and urologist is available, or C-arm and urologist or both are not available. Let us see the first scenario, that is the C-arm or a fluoroscopy and a urologist both are available. In that scenario, the urologist would do an RGP. If the leak is seen, it indicates that the ureter has been injured, and once the contrast is seen entering into the proximal ureter, a guide wire is passed. If the guide wire is successful, a DJ stenting is done. If the guide wire does not go across the area of injury, then one can try a ureterorhinoscopy and put a guide wire under vision. If it is successful, we do a DJ stenting. If it fails, or a scenario where the leak is seen but no contrast enters into the proximal ureter, we need to do an open surgery and tackle the injury. The various surgical options while tackling these injuries are: if there has been ligation of the ureter, we remove the ligature. Look for the vascularity. If the vascularity is good, either put in a DJ, or we may not do any intervention if we are very sure that the vascularity is absolutely fine. But if there is a question mark regarding the vascularity or there is an obvious ischemia, we need to put either a DJ, do an end-to-end anastomosis by spatulating the ureter, or do a ureteric reimplantation. The ureteric reimplantation can be a direct ureteric reimplantation, or a psoas hitch, or a Bori flap, or sometimes even a transuretero-ureterostomy may be necessitated. The second scenario is the urologist is available but there is no fluoroscopy which is available. In such a scenario, one can do a cystoscopy and do a retrograde pylography or an RGP using methylene blue and look for leakage, and then based on what are the findings, decide whether we can put in a DJ or do an open surgical repair. The third scenario, which is very often seen in developing countries, especially in the rural setup, is there is no urologist, no CIAM, and no cystoscope is available. In such a scenario, one can open the bladder, pass a 5 French infant feeding tube, and then inject methylene blue to confirm or refute the possibility of a ureteric injury. Of course, for this, help of a surgeon would be very useful, even if a urologist is not available. Friends, I think if we are in doubt of an ureteric injury and no help is available, the simplest thing to do is drain. Because if we have a good drain, then we can definitely have a controlled fistula and not an uncontrolled leak of urine in the peritoneum with catastrophic results. In conclusion, friends, I would say there is no surgeon who has never had complications. Mistakes are meant for learning but not for repeating. There are 2 simple rules which we need to follow to avoid urological injuries in gynec surgeries. Rule 1 is play safe, and rule 2 is remember rule number 1. Thank you so much.